For years, fans believed Miranda Lambert would never truly speak about Blake Shelton again. After one of country music's most publicized divorces, she rarely addressed him directly, allowing rumors to dominate the headlines. But over the years, something unexpected happened. Through candid interviews, emotional songs, and even awkward public moments, Miranda gradually revealed what she really thinks about the man she once called her husband. And the truth is far more complicated than most people expected. Long before Blake Shelton became known as Gwen Stefani's husband, he and Miranda Lambert were considered country music's ultimate power couple. Their relationship seemed to have everything: chemistry, chart-topping success, industry respect, and a love story that fans believed would last forever. Ironically, it all began while Blake was still married to someone else. In September 2005, Blake and Miranda were paired together to perform David Frizzell and Shelley West's classic duet, "You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma," during CMT's 100 Greatest Duets television special. Although they had crossed paths before, this was the first time they truly connected. Years later, Blake openly admitted that the performance changed his life. During an appearance on VH1's Behind the Music, he confessed, "I've never had that kind of experience with anybody. I was a married guy, you know. Looking back on that, I was falling in love with her, right there on stage." 5 months later, Blake filed for divorce from his first wife, Kaynette Williams. He consistently denied that Miranda caused the breakup, but it wasn't long before the two country stars became inseparable. By 2007, they officially debuted as a couple on the red carpet at the CMT Music Awards, instantly becoming one of Nashville's biggest celebrity romances. As both careers exploded, so did their relationship. Miranda had already built a reputation as one of country music's boldest singer-songwriters, while Blake was becoming one of the genre's biggest male stars. Instead of competing, they often supported each other's success. They recorded music together, performed together, and became regular fixtures at award shows. In May 2010, Blake proposed during a quiet walk through the woods near Miranda's Oklahoma ranch. Miranda later told People magazine that what excited her most wasn't the engagement ring. She said she simply wanted to spend the rest of her life making Blake happy. On May 14th, 2011, they married during a rustic ranch wedding in Bourne, Texas. The ceremony attracted many of country music's biggest names, including Kelly Clarkson and Reba McEntire. One song held special meaning that day: "God Gave Me You." It became the couple's wedding song and symbolized what many believed was a perfect marriage. For the next several years, Blake and Miranda appeared almost unstoppable. They celebrated career milestones together, shared Grammy and CMA moments, and were widely viewed as the future of country music. Perhaps the greatest example of their emotional connection came through one unforgettable song. Together, they wrote "Over You," inspired by the death of Blake's older brother, Richie Shelton, who was killed in a car accident in 1990 at just 24 years old. Miranda later revealed that writing the song changed the way she understood her husband. "My ex-husband, Blake, had lost a brother," she recalled years later during Apple Music's Essentials Radio. "Even if you're married to someone, sometimes you find something new about them." She explained that Blake rarely talked about his grief, but one day he opened up. When she asked whether he had ever written about losing Richie, Blake said no. He repeated something his father had always told him: "You don't get over it. You just get used to it." Miranda carefully asked if they could write the song together. She made it clear she didn't want to tell his story for him because she hadn't lived it herself. Instead, she hoped she could help him express feelings that had remained buried for years. The result became one of the most emotional songs either of them ever created. Released in 2011, "Over You" won CMA Song of the Year in 2012, and years after their divorce, Miranda still described writing it as a really special moment. Even more telling was what she said next. "I'm so glad we shared that song," she explained. "It helped his family heal." Those words would become the first major clue that despite everything that happened later, Miranda's feelings about Blake were never as simple as love turning into hate. Because just a few years after standing together on award show stages, everything they had built would suddenly come crashing down. And when their marriage ended in July 2015, the entire country music world wanted to know one thing: what really happened? On July 20th, 2015, after 6 years together and 4 years of marriage, Blake Shelton and Miranda Lambert shocked the country music world by announcing that they were divorcing. The timing surprised almost everyone because the announcement came only hours before their divorce became official. In a joint statement released through the Associated Press, they wrote, "This is not the future we envisioned, and it is with heavy hearts that we move forward separately." They also asked for privacy and compassion, emphasizing that they were real people with real lives, real families, friends, and colleagues. It was a respectful statement, but it answered none of the questions fans desperately wanted to know. The lack of explanation created a vacuum that tabloids quickly filled with speculation. Within days, countless stories claimed that infidelity had destroyed the marriage. Others suggested they disagreed about starting a family, pointing to reports that Blake wanted children while Miranda was more focused on her career. However, it is important to note that neither Blake nor Miranda has ever publicly confirmed any of those rumors. Blake's representatives denied reports that he had been unfaithful, with one source describing him as an incredibly loyal and dedicated husband. On Miranda's side, anonymous sources also rejected allegations that she had cheated, insisting she had been deeply devoted to Blake throughout their marriage. Despite years of headlines, no definitive reason for the divorce has ever been confirmed by either of them. One detail that Blake did choose to explain publicly was how quickly the legal process ended. During an interview on The Bobby Bones Show later that year, he revealed that because the couple had no children together and had signed a prenuptial agreement, Oklahoma law allowed the divorce to be finalized after only about 9 or 10 days from the filing. Legally, the marriage ended almost overnight. Emotionally, however, it was a completely different story. Miranda later admitted that she was unprepared for what came next. Speaking to CBS News years after the divorce, she said the experience of living through such a public breakup was something no one could truly prepare for. "I wasn't prepared for that," she admitted. "I don't think anybody is, and it's not nice sometimes." She wasn't referring only to the end of her marriage, but also to the endless rumors, headlines, and public debates about who was to blame. Every interview, every song, and every public appearance became another opportunity for people to speculate. Rather than responding to every rumor, Miranda made a conscious decision to stay mostly silent. She believed that arguing with gossip would accomplish nothing. Instead, she chose to let her songwriting speak for her. Explaining her philosophy, she said, "You've got to take it with a grain of salt. I'm a singer-songwriter, so luckily I can tell my whole truth." Then she delivered the sentence that perhaps best explains her entire approach to life after Blake Shelton: "I will not lie in my music." When Miranda Lambert finally spoke about Blake Shelton after the divorce, she did not sound like someone trying to destroy her ex-husband. She sounded like someone still trying to understand what had happened. In her Cosmopolitan cover interview, published after the split, Miranda said something that surprised many fans. "We were together for 10 years, married for 4, were very quickly divorced, and are friends." That sentence mattered because it came directly from her, not from anonymous sources or tabloid speculation. Miranda was 32 years old at the time, and Blake was 39. Their divorce had become a public event, but her words were controlled and careful. She admitted she was still processing everything and trying to figure out where to go and what happened. Instead of blaming Blake, she described marriage itself as difficult, saying, "Marriage is a tough business, and we gave it our best college try." It was not a romantic statement, but it was honest. She was not pretending the marriage had been perfect, yet she was not reducing it to scandal either. What made the interview more revealing was how Miranda talked about love after the breakup. She said getting married again was completely not on my radar at that moment. To her, marriage was no longer about a diamond ring or a piece of paper. It was about what someone felt in their heart. That was a quiet but powerful shift from the woman who once stood beside Blake in a Texas ranch wedding in 2011, believing forever was still possible. Miranda also admitted the pain was real. She described nights on her porch crying, drinking whiskey, and thinking, "Man, this sucks right now." That was not a polished celebrity answer. It was the voice of a woman trying to rebuild herself after a divorce, watched by millions. So what did Miranda really think of Blake? Based on her own words, she did not speak of him as an enemy. She spoke of him as a major chapter in her life, someone she loved, someone she lost, and someone connected to a marriage that hurt deeply but was not meaningless. Years after the divorce, one of the most revealing Miranda Lambert moments did not come from a serious interview. It happened by accident during her appearance on This Past Weekend with Theo Von, while she was promoting her album Postcards from Texas. The conversation had nothing to do with Blake Shelton at first. Theo Von was simply talking about old radio shows and asked his producer to play a clip from the Cryin', Lovin' or Leavin' show. The producer searched online, opened the first clip he found, and suddenly Blake Shelton's God Gave Me You began playing. For most guests, that would have been uncomfortable enough. For Miranda, it was even more loaded, because that song was not just a Blake Shelton hit. It had been her wedding song when she married him in 2011. Their marriage ended in 2015, but the memory attached to that song was still powerful enough to make the room freeze for a second. Miranda's reaction said more than a carefully prepared statement ever could. Instead of shutting down, getting angry, or asking them to stop the clip, she burst out laughing. Then she delivered the line that made the moment instantly memorable. "Perfect. That was actually perfect. My first wedding song, guys. Let's play that." It was sharp, funny, and completely unexpected. That reaction showed how much distance she had gained from the pain. Earlier in her post-divorce years, Miranda had described crying on her porch, drinking whiskey, and trying to process what had happened. But in this moment, she was no longer speaking from the raw center of heartbreak. She was able to acknowledge the past without letting it control the room. It also revealed something important about how she now views Blake. She did not treat his name or his music like poison. She treated it as an awkward piece of history that she had survived. Her laugh did not erase the pain, but it proved she was no longer trapped inside it. By the time Miranda Lambert reached her late 30s, the way she spoke about Blake Shelton had changed. She no longer sounded like someone trying to explain a breakup. She sounded like someone who had accepted that one chapter of her life would always be public, whether she wanted it or not. In her CBS News interview, nearly 7 years after the divorce, she admitted the tabloid attention had been painful, but she also made it clear that she had found a way to live beyond it. Her most important statement was not an insult toward Blake. It was a statement about herself. "I will not lie in my music." That line explains why she never needed to sit down and list every private detail of their marriage. Miranda's truth was never going to come through a gossip headline. It came through songs about heartbreak, survival, anger, loneliness, and eventually peace. For a singer-songwriter, that was more honest than a dramatic tell-all interview. She also made it clear that time had changed her. Miranda said she had grown up, learned about herself, and started to settle into who she really was. That is why, years later, she could say she felt at peace with herself. Those words matter because they show the divorce no longer defined her identity. Blake had been a huge part of her life, but he was not the whole story. Her life after Blake proved that point. In 2019, Miranda secretly married former NYPD officer Brendan McLaughlin, whom she met outside Good Morning America in New York. She later joked that their meeting felt like some kind of Hallmark movie, describing it as the redneck from Texas meeting a beautiful NYPD officer on the street. With Brendan, she found a different kind of partnership, one that inspired songs like Settling Down. So what did Miranda finally say out loud about Blake Shelton? She said enough. She admitted the marriage mattered, the divorce hurt, the public pressure was brutal, and the music would carry the truth. She did not need to destroy Blake to move on. Her real message was stronger than revenge. She survived him, respected what was real, and chose peace over bitterness. In the end, Miranda Lambert's words about Blake Shelton were never as simple as hate or regret. She remembered the love, admitted the pain, and let her music tell the parts she would not explain in tabloids. Do you think Miranda handled the divorce with grace, or should she have spoken more openly? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more deep stories behind country music's biggest names.